Hi everyone, my name is Jess Massiangelo and I am the Global Business Development Director working at Impetus Digital. At Impetus, we believe all new great ideas start with a conversation. Our online collaboration platform is the perfect place for not just starting these conversations, but also for continuously building on the ideas and insights generated over time and creating authentic relationships with the participants in the process. Having these big, courageous conversations is how we can start to implement change and really positively disrupt healthcare. In this podcast series, we talk to some of the brightest minds in the life sciences industry to get their take on being an effective leader, navigating digital transformation, and ultimately enhancing patient care. Today, I am joined by Fran Milnes, who is the Region Head for Marketing and Commercial Excellence in Oncology at Novartis. In this role, Fran oversees the commercialization of a broad oncology portfolio across Australia, China, Turkey, Asia Pacific, and Middle East Africa. She previously worked in various market access and pricing roles, which she is very passionate about and has experience working in management consulting as well. Thank you so much for being with us today, Fran.
Absolutely, delighted to, and thanks for the invitation, Jess.
Absolutely. So maybe to start it off, it would be great if you could tell us a little bit about your professional journey and how you ended up in your current role.
Yeah, so maybe if I start back at the management consulting days, because that's where I first got into the pharmaceutical industry, and I was an analyst that was looking at forecasting new product launches, also looking at the end of life cycle, so RX to OTC switches and what happens when generics enter into the market. And I did that for a few years at the same time that access was starting to become more of an issue for new product launches. So it was around the time when payers in Europe were not happy to pay a price premium just because you told them you were bringing a new mode of action. So they really wanted to see what was the incremental benefit that you were actually going to bring to patients and their outcomes or to their healthcare system. So I moved into the practice for value and access and working with pharmaceutical companies on what was their payer value proposition. And while I was doing that, I did my executive MBA, and prior to even completing the executive MBA, Novartis had reached out and said that they were reorganizing their pricing and market access group to not be a central team that was separated from the business, but to integrate into the different franchises. And they were looking for a head of access for their neuroscience and ophthalmology franchise, which me and my family leapt at the opportunity for me go into industry, and for us all to move from the UK to Switzerland as a family. So for the last 10 years, I've been with Novartis. Most of that remained in value and access, first on the pharma side and in global. Then I moved to a regional role. But then for the last 18 months, I've been focused on marketing and commercial excellence. So broadening out and trying a new area of field, but still ultimately with the goal for helping patients and improving their outcomes.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for that context. That's definitely quite the career path, and I'm sure a lot of people listening are really excited and interested to hear kind of what you have to say about really what's going on right now in the industry and all these changes, and of course the COVID-19 effect. So looking forward to kind of chatting a little bit more about that. Before we kind of jump into those specifics, you, of course, obviously have had many leadership roles. So what would you say are some of the key leadership lessons that you have learned throughout your career?
Yeah, excellent question. I think the first lesson that I learned was not to expect others to want to be led in the way that I wanted to. So I can remember back, my first sort of big leadership mistake was actually giving a stretch project and a stretch opportunity to somebody who recoiled at that opportunity, because that wasn't actually where they wanted to focus their efforts. It wasn't where they got their energy from working on. It wasn't the big star, bright highlight projects, which is what had motivated me and would have pushed me to achieve more. So I realized then that actually it was a lot more about needing to be curious and listening to the people that you were leading, to see how you could extract the best from them and how you could really help and support them to achieve the most. So that was my big number one lesson. And I think since then I have tried to continue to take that adaptation of approach, and as I've got into roles that have then dealt with multiple different cultures, that has only been exacerbated as a learning and a lesson, that maybe something that works in one setting is not going to naturally translate or naturally move over. And a recent one is, we have a big thing at Novartis about the speak up culture. And as leaders, that it's really important to create a psychologically safe space so that people can speak up. And you see that works very differently in a market like China compared to a market like Saudi Arabia, versus a Swiss environment. And so how to create that psychological safety, again, for me, and the difference has been another more recent leadership lesson.
I love that. I think those are some great lessons. And even personally, I think back to some of the best leaders that I've had, and always having that more personalized approach and really trying to understand who you are trying to guide and what their interests are and how they best learn, and really tailoring your approach to that. It has always been the best scenarios in my case. So I totally could not echo that more. So thank you for sharing that with us. My next question is really around kind of what is going on right now in the world and how it relates to the industry that we're in. So what would you say are some of the key challenges that the healthcare industry is really facing right now?
Yeah, it's interesting, because for me it's a combination of both of my roles that I've had when I've been in industry. I mean, the one that we can all foresee is that the costs to the healthcare systems that COVID has incurred, whether that be healthcare personnel, whether that be emergency measures that have been needed, treating patients, but then also now paying for and rolling out the vaccination program, something that nobody had forecast and budgeted for. What is that going to mean for deficits moving forward? So if we don't invest more into the healthcare system to allow for that additional cost, then what is going to be sacrificed at the other end? So if the pie doesn't get bigger, which bits are going to have to be cut out to make way for that additional spend that governments and healthcare systems weren't expecting? So I think that's something where we're really trying to have an open dialogue, and especially to highlight the really clear insights that were gathered from countries which had really invested in healthcare systems, that were then able to deal with the pandemic in a much more controlled manner and with less human loss, basically. So I think that's one big area from my sort of old part of my responsibilities. And then if I look at the in my new responsibilities, then what does the engagement model between industry and customers and physicians and nurses and healthcare providers look like moving forward? Because we've actually been given an opportunity to relook at that model rather than just continuing on and tweaking and making a few adjustments here and there. We've actually now got the opportunity to really step back and say, what is a value interaction, and what's a win-win situation for both parties in this engagement, knowing that physicians want to do the best for their patients and pharmaceutical companies want to have the right patient have the right treatment at the right time. And I think that opportunity that we've now been afforded is an exciting one and an interesting one moving forward.
Yeah, that, especially your second point there, that actually leads perfectly into my next question, because of course, the way that we engage is completely different now with the stakeholders that we previously used to engage with. And of course, Impetus is very much into virtual engagement, and it almost feels like we're starting from scratch all over again and trying to navigate and learn what the best practices are in this new world. So kind of building off of that, how would you say COVID-19 specifically has really impacted your team communication, whether that's collaborating internally or externally with stakeholders? What has kind of been the biggest changes for you?
Yeah, I think so obviously we are using a lot more platforms where, like you and I now, we're not just talking to each other over the phone. I used to spend a lot of time talking to the star speaker in the middle of a meeting room, and now there's a lot more visual communication. But what's come along with that virtual collaboration within my team is a democracy of voice, because we are a team where we have a lot of us who are based in one location, but then, as you said in the introduction, you know, my team is in Australia, China, Turkey, Middle East, Asia Pacific. And what you find is if all of you are on the screen, then it's super clear who has their hand up. You've got chat going on, which is sort of enriching the verbal discussion, and then also leaves a lasting impression. You've got the ability for people to be able to like comments or like questions. So again, as a team, you can see which is the most important question to answer, because it's the one that's gathering the most support from the community. So I think there's been a lot of positives from that collaboration, and yet at the same time we do an internal survey, and some of the sense of belonging is starting to go down. So I think people are also itching to get back face to face and into the office, but most likely then we'll see this sort of hybrid mixture of face to face and online collaboration.
Absolutely. It's certainly a really interesting time to be working in this field and navigating all of this. So looking forward to the days where it's hybrid and we can kind of, again, start from scratch and learn how to navigate that now. So thank you for sharing that. Really only one more question, and this one is a little bit more fun and just want to kind of get to know your personal response to it. But what would you say is the favorite part, your favorite part of your current role?
Good question. I think my favorite part is the possibilities and the opportunity, because being in marketing and commercial excellence, there's so many ideas that my team have, and there's so much scope for innovation. And one of the things that we've been doing, we've been playing with a new way of working. So we're working with agility for about 40% of our time. So 60% is still the normal day job rhythm, but everybody has taken a project that they're giving about 30 or 40% of their time to, and then we work in these two-week sprints, and every 2 weeks the ideas and the direction that the projects they're working on get presented to a panel of brand managers from the countries. And the brand managers from the countries are able to say, love that, please carry on going down that exploration. No, that wouldn't really make a difference to our day jobs. And so actually you could can that idea, and that one's great, but tweak it sort of in this direction. And the team is loving the impact that they're able to have then with the brand managers in the countries, because ultimately as a regional team, we are there to serve our countries. So yeah, I think it's probably that. It's the opportunity and the ability to be a bit innovative and playful in this space at this particular time.
I love that. What a cool and interesting way to really foster innovation and new ideas. It's a really neat format that you have going on, and I'm sure lots of amazing projects have come out of it. So thank you for sharing that. That was pretty much all we had for today. So I really want to thank you so much, Fran, for your time and for recording this podcast with us at Impetus. It was great to learn more about you, as well as your extremely successful career, as well as gain some insights on your thinking towards the industry and what is currently going on right now. To the listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today. And as always, reach out if you have any questions or comments or want to further the discussions. We at Impetus are always looking for ways to really continue these conversations. Until next time, have a great rest of your day.